patience the exile of this life. It was also the echo of my inmost thoughts. In truth, I had long known that the Lord is more tender than a mother, and I have sounded the depths of more than one mother's heart. I know that a mother is ever ready to forgive her child's small thoughtless faults. How often have I not had this sweet experience? No reproach could have touched me more than one single kiss from my mother. My nature is such that fear makes me shrink, while, under love's sweet rule, I not only advance, I fly. 2 months after this happy retreat, our venerable foundress, Mother Genevieve of St. Therese, quitted our little convent to enter the heavenly Carmel. Before speaking of my impressions at the time of her death, I should like to tell you what a joy it was to have lived for some years with a soul whose holiness was not inimitable, but lay in the practice of simple and hidden virtues. More than once she was to me a source of great consolation. One Sunday I went to the infirmary to pay her a visit, but, as 2 of the older nuns were there, I was retiring quietly, when she called me and said, with something of inspiration in her manner, "Wait, my child, I have just a word for you. You are always asking me for a spiritual bouquet. Well, today I give you this one. Serve the Lord in peace and in joy. Remember that our God is the God of peace." I thanked her quite simply and went out of the room. I was moved almost to tears, and was convinced that God had revealed to her the state of my soul. That day I had been sorely tried, almost to sadness. Such was the darkness that I no longer knew if I were beloved of God, and so, dear Mother, you can understand what light and consolation succeeded this gloom. The following Sunday I asked her whether she had received any revelation about me, but she assured me that she had not, and this only made me admire her the more, for it showed how intimately Jesus lived in her soul, and directed her words and actions. Such holiness seems to me the most true, the most holy. It is the holiness I desire, for it is free from all illusion. On the day when this revered Mother ended her exile, I received a very special grace. It was the first time I had assisted at a deathbed, yet though the sight enchanted me by its beauty, my 2 hours of watching had made me very drowsy. I was grieved at this, but, at the moment her soul took its flight to heaven, my feelings were completely changed. In an instant I was filled with an indescribable joy and fervour, as if the soul of our blessed Foundress made me share in the happiness she already enjoyed, for I am quite convinced she went straight to heaven. I had said to her some time previously, "You will not go to purgatory, dear Mother." "I hope not," she answered sweetly. Certainly God would not disappoint a hope so full of humility, and the proof that He did not, lies in the many favours we have received. The Sisters hastened to claim something belonging to our beloved Mother, and you know what a precious relic is mine. During her agony I had noticed a tear glistening like a beautiful diamond. That tear, the last she shed on this earth, did not fall. I still saw it shining when her body was exposed in the choir. When evening came, I made bold to approach unseen, with a little piece of linen, and I now have the happiness of possessing the last tear of a saint. I attach no importance to my dreams, and indeed they seldom have any special meaning, though I do often wonder how it is that, as I think of God all the day, my mind does not dwell on Him more in my sleep. Generally I dream of the woods and the flowers, the brooks and the sea, and nearly always of pretty children, or I chase birds and butterflies such as I have never seen. But if my dreams are sometimes poetical, they are never mystical. However, one night after Mother Genevieve's death, I had a more consoling one. I thought I saw her giving to each of us something that had belonged to herself. When my turn came, her hands were empty, and I was afraid I was not to receive anything, but she looked at me lovingly and said 3 times, "To you I leave my heart." About a month after that seraphic death, towards the close of the year 1891, an epidemic of influenza raged in the community. I only had it slightly, and was able to be about with 2 other Sisters. It is impossible to imagine the heart-rending state of our Carmel throughout those days of sorrow. The worst sufferers were nursed by those who could hardly drag themselves about. Death was all around us, and, when a Sister had breathed her last, we had to leave her instantly. My 19th birthday was saddened by the death of Mother's sub-prioress. I assisted with the infirmarian during her agony, and 2 more deaths quickly followed. I now had to do the sacristy work single-handed, and I wonder sometimes how I was equal to it all. One morning, when it was time to rise, I had a presentiment that Sister Magdalene was no more. The dormitory was quite in darkness, no one was leaving her cell. I decided, however, to go in to Sister Magdalene, and I found her dressed, but lying dead on her bed. I was not in the least afraid, and running to the sacristy I quickly brought a blessed candle, and placed on her head a wreath of roses. Amid all this desolation I felt the hand of God, and knew that His heart was watching over us. Our dear Sisters left this life for a happier one without any struggle. An expression of heavenly joy shone on their faces, and they seemed only to be enjoying a pleasant sleep. During all these long and trying weeks I had the unspeakable consolation of receiving Holy Communion every day. How sweet it was! For a long time Jesus treated me as a spoilt child, for a longer time than His more faithful spouses. He came to me daily for several months after the influenza had ceased, a privilege not granted to the community. I had not asked this favour, but I was unspeakably happy to be united day after day to my Beloved. Great was my joy in being allowed to touch the sacred vessels and prepare the altar linen on which Our Lord was to be laid. I felt that I must increase in fervour, and I often recalled those words addressed to deacons at their ordination: "Be you holy, you who carry the vessels of the Lord." What can I tell you, dear Mother, about my thanksgivings after Communion? There is no time when I taste less consolation, but this is what I should expect. I desire to receive Our Lord, not for my own satisfaction, but simply to give Him pleasure. I picture my soul as a piece of waste ground and beg Our Blessed Lady to take away my imperfections, which are as heaps of rubbish, and to build upon it a splendid tabernacle worthy of heaven, and adorn it with her own adornments. Then I invite all the Angels and Saints to come and sing canticles of love, and it seems to me that Jesus is well pleased to see Himself received so grandly, and I share in His joy. But all this does not prevent distractions and drowsiness from troubling me, and not unfrequently I resolve to continue my thanksgiving throughout the day, since I made it so badly in choir. You see, dear Mother, that my way is not the way of fear. I can always make myself happy, and profit by my imperfections, and Our Lord Himself encourages me in this path. Once, contrary to my usual custom, I felt troubled when I approached the Holy Table. For several days there had not been a sufficient number of hosts, and I had only received a small part of one. This morning I foolishly thought, if the same thing happens today, I shall imagine that Jesus does not care to come into my heart. I approached the rails. What a joy awaited me! The priest hesitated a moment, then gave me 2 entire hosts. Was this not a sweet response? I have much to be thankful for. I will tell you quite openly what the Lord has done for me. He has shown unto me the same mercy as unto King Solomon. All my desires have been satisfied, not only my desires of perfection, but even those of which I understood the vanity in theory if not in practice. I had always looked on Sister Agnes of Jesus as my model, and I wished to be like her in everything. She used to paint exquisite miniatures and write beautiful poems, and this inspired me with a desire to learn to paint. Therese had kept this wish hidden in her heart from the days of her childhood, and later in life she made the following confidence. I was 10 the day Papa told Céline that she was to begin painting lessons. I felt quite envious. Then he turned to me and said: "Well, little Queen, would you like to learn painting too?" I was going to say, "Yes, indeed I should," when Marie remarked that I had not the same taste for it as Céline. She carried her point, and I said nothing, thinking it was a splendid opportunity to make a big sacrifice for Our Lord. I was so anxious to learn that even now I wonder how I was able to keep my silence. And express my thoughts in verse, that I might do some good to those around me. But I would not ask for these natural gifts, and my desire remained hidden in my heart. Jesus, too, had hidden Himself in this poor little heart, and He was pleased to show me once more the vanity of all that passes. To the great astonishment of the community, I succeeded in painting several pictures and in writing poems which have been a help to certain souls. And just as Solomon, turning to all the works which his hand had wrought, and to the labours wherein he had laboured in vain, saw in all things vanity and vexation of mind. Ecclesiastes 2:11. So experience showed me that the sole happiness of earth consists in lying hidden, and remaining in total ignorance of created things. I understood that without love even the most brilliant deeds count for nothing. These gifts, which Our Lord